1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 14. We have the potential here of blessing a lot of children. And I kind of know what I want it to look like. I want it to have log cabins in it. I kind of know my palette, but it can't be overly traditional. What it does is it creates a lot more little bitty pieces. And I could go through one of these rolls in no time. Can you believe that? 14 subgroups that we already did not have labeled. You know, we didn't have names associated with them. Plus the ones we already had, you know, a label on. This is our crazy sampler 4 blocks. So that's one more. And then this is our log cabin sampler blocks. That's 2 more. Our butterfly in the garden, and on it I've taken note that we need more blocks for it. So it's not quite as ready as some of these are. How many was that? 1, 2, 3. And then this one is our unicorn. And this is one that I think I'm going to be working on today. I'm going to set that aside. So that would be number 4. And then number 5 here is really close too. I think it's as close as the unicorn one is. And so that's our sampler 16 block. It needs some kind of sashing. I'm excited, guys. Isn't that awesome? That's just a lot. I mean, 14 and we just added 5, 19 altogether. And we had 2 quilts already done. And I believe it's 5 quilt tops that were ready to get on the long arm. Isn't that fantastic? Oh my gosh, we have the potential here of blessing a lot of children. And this is just the very beginning. I'm so excited about where this project is going. I really am. I am going to be moving the needle on Avery quilts today. I'm going to be working most likely on the unicorn one. I think it's a unicorn one. I want to put one of them underneath the sewing machine today. Something is going to get started. And hopefully before I get this video put up for you guys, we'll be able to see what progress I've made. That's the objective anyway. We'll see what happens. But first, let me tell you what I did this weekend. Or maybe I should say what I didn't do that was planned, but what I did do. I told you guys in the last video that, you know, even though I'd been out of the house and my schedule had gotten kind of flopped, that I still had time to work on Avery quilts before a video was due to you today. Well, I did have time, but my body did not have any energy. I was too fatigued. It said, "Peace out, chick, I'm out of here. And if you don't behave yourself, I'm going to take your brain cells with me." And it will. I know. I have multiple chronic illnesses. I know when my body gets that fatigued, I have to mind the warning, because if I don't, it will just shut me down. So I sat in my rocking chair all day Saturday. And let me just talk to you healthy people out there who have no clue what I'm talking about. God bless you. You know, it's just God bless you, because I didn't understand this kind of fatigue either until I got chronically ill. But my chronically ill brothers and sisters out there, I just want you to know, I see you and I'm representing for you, okay? I'm not camouflaging it. It's a real thing. But what did I do? I sat in my rocking chair all day on Saturday and almost all day on Sunday. In the evening, I had a little bit of a resurgence of energy, and so I came up here and I started unstitching on the Hexie quilt. And I made a little video clip for you guys, a little bit last night and a little bit today. I'm going to run that for you in a second. But the other thing that I did, when I was sitting there on Saturday, listening to my body was saying, nope, not going to do anything. I was trying to figure out, how can I move the needle? How can I move the needle? EQ8 is something that's been on my radar. I had kind of dabbled in it a couple of weeks ago. There's this quilt that I want to make for Mark, my ex-husband, and I kind of know what I want it to look like. I want it to have log cabins in it. I kind of know my palette, but it can't be overly traditional. Anyway, I really wasn't sure how to navigate the program. I was trying, bullheaded like I am, I was trying to learn it intuitively, thinking that it functions like most of the programs that I'm accustomed to. Well, it doesn't. And so I knew it would take a time when I could just kind of put blinders on and focus on it. Saturday was perfect for that because my body was not going to let me do anything else. So I sat there with my laptop on my knees because I have found that with my spine issues, the oddest position that is the most beneficial to keeping my thoracic, upper thoracic, and my neck in alignment and use my computer, it's to sit in my rocking chair with my feet on a stool and my laptop up on my knees. That way I don't have to look down, I don't have to lean in, and it's oddly, bizarrely, it's the most ergonomically correct position for me to use my laptop. It damages me less. So I sat there with my EQ8 open, think I've got this Irish chain I want to make for my grandbaby. How do I do that? I just, I've got this vision of what I want, but I don't want to cut into my fabrics until I know that it's going to look good. I almost didn't do this, guys. I wanted to cut into that fabric and make my vision so badly, almost shortchanged doing it properly. I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I dove into EQ8. I'm glad I couldn't have a distraction and I was able to dive into EQ8. I learned a lot. I learned how to build a quilt from scratch. I came up with my block and I love my block. But when I put it together inside the quilt, I didn't like the quilt. If I had cut into my fabric and created the block that I had the vision for, I would not have liked my quilt. What I love about an Irish chain is the actual chain. There are some quilts that are Irish chains, but you never even know it because the chain kind of disappears. This was going to be one of those. And it just didn't look, it just wasn't as appealing as I was wanting it to look. Now, granted, I was not using my actual fabrics. I was using hues and tones similar to my fabrics. There are ways that you can actually take pictures of your fabric and put that into EQ8. If I'd had the energy to come up here and take pictures of my fabric, I would have done that. But I didn't climb those stairs. Every time I thought about climbing those stairs, my body was saying, no, ma'am. So it's fine. I used proximities of hue and value and created my block. Put it together in that quilt and my chain was lost. So, okay, you're back to the drawing board, Dawn. What do you want? So I tried a different couple of ways. At first, I wanted to kind of mimic something I've seen on Pinterest where from that main chain that radiates out from the center square that someone did a gradation in color. So the squares on either side of the chain are a similar hue, but they were lighter. And so it really made the chain pop. It was really pretty. And so to do that, the strips between the chain were made out of 1-inch blocks too. So I thought, okay, well, let's go that route. And what can we do? Because I still wanted to use my entire palette. I was going to show you in another video what I came up with, but I'm going to go ahead and show it to you because I've already talked to you this much about it. I'm really pleased with the block I came up with and the design of the quilt. I get my chain, all of my fabric colors, the different fabrics are used. And because I went through that process, EQ8 did the math for me and showed me how much fabric I needed to get of each of the fabrics. That was awesome. Because then I figured out too, because I was thinking the whole time, I don't want to cut into my fabric and make a commitment that this is the brown I'm using throughout the quilt if I can't access any more of that particular brown or whatever it is. We're going to get back to Avery Quilts, I promise. Oops, I had a phone call come in and it stopped the recording. Let me get back to where I was. So it was 1/8 of this that I still need to find. And I think I can compensate for that minor of amount of a fabric that might have to be in a similar style. I'm going to check my notes, but I think that was the only one that I have that I'm that close to having all of what's needed. So it's just 1/8 of the chartreuse. Now the brown with squares, I need 3/4 of a yard of that. That's this one. And I know there's plenty of this at the fabric store. I just need to go get it when I go back into town on Thursday for physical therapy. So I need another fat quarter, because I think this is a fat 1/8. I need a fat quarter of something similar to my birds. And I don't know that I can get exactly this, but I need this hue, this tone value and something in this kind of this, and something in this style. The birds, I would really love it to be nature oriented and sky, bird related, if I could get so fortunate. We'll see. Oh, and then I need an eighth of this one. And I think this is Art Gallery. I don't have any seam allowances on this. Oh, I do have a seam allowance. Not a seam allowance. What do you call that? It's not Art Gallery. Oh, Zen Chic. This is nice. I can probably order this maybe if it's not in my store, but looking at my selvage, it is Celestial by Bridget Heitman for Zen Chic. That's great to know. I'm glad I commented on that. I just assumed because it was an eighth, since it was a pre-cut that might not be there, but I'm glad I checked. Okay, so that's not bad, right? So even if I had to find something similar to this, I think, like we said with the chartreuse, an eighth is not that much of a percentage of the entire quilt that I couldn't find something similar. Because when you look at my quilt design, I'm going to save all that for another video, but whenever you look at the finished quilt design, you'll see that there's an area in the border where some of these colors go into the border, and maybe that's where the fabrics that I have to purchase yet, maybe that's where they would go. We'll see. I don't know. But right now, I think I have enough of this, except for my backing. I haven't asked EQ8 to tell me how much backing material I need. I don't know if it does that or not. EQ8's pretty awesome, but I know the size of my quilt, how it exists right now. But I know I can get some of this, but I'm also not worrying about it. It's going to be a little while before I get there. That's an expense I can punt on, because in my mind, even though I'm thinking this would be a lovely back, I may want to do something completely different on the back. Speaking of backing, that is a great segue for us to go over to Avery Quilts. If you are not a member of the Quilt Show, you would not have seen yesterday their interview with, hang on one moment while I look it up. Okay, the name that was in my head was for the first person they interviewed yesterday, and that's Phyllis Cullen. Oh my gosh, her work is phenomenal, but that's not who I was thinking of. There's another person they had on, and I'm not going to take the time right now to find her. She did quilt labels in a way that I want us to consider doing for our Avery quilts. She uses a little bit of print out, and then she copies it using a light box, and then she's using ink on top of that. They just look really, really cool. So we'll get to another video that's all about just our labels, but if you have seen that, you know what I'm talking about. I think that'd be a lovely direction for us to go. I want to be really thoughtful about what we say on our label, and I want it to be consistent through all of them. But I want it to be hand done and not manufactured. I don't want to just ask somebody at Etsy or whatever to just mass produce a bunch of labels for us. I want it to be something cool that represents this is love being poured into these quilts for you people. We know that you're going through a journey, and we want to provide some comfort in your waiting. Okay, so I wish I could remember that lady's name. But since we are on the topic of Avery Quilts, let's get to talking about it. I'm going to, where is it? This is the one. This is my pink unicorn. So this is the one I'm going to put on the design board. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some white fabric up there with it to see how it looks with white. We talked about using the pink. I really like the pink. A couple of you said that may be too much, and I want to listen to you. I would love an orange in there or a yellow, but I understand some of you might need to see a little bit of relief around the blocks, since the blocks have so much color in them, right? Like there's just, all the blocks have a lot of color. So let's make that executive decision today. On this video, we will see that executive decision, and then we're going to do the beginning of getting these things sewn. If I can move the needle enough to get started, things will get progressed on another day. That's how life works, right? Moving that needle. Now give me a second. Let me see what I can do. Thankfully, I have a nice selection of yardage to choose from for considering our sashing for the pink unicorn quilt. This is the other thing I did on Sunday, I think it was, before I sat down to work on unstitching on the hexie quilt. I was able to fold up everything and get them nice and neat inside here. So this is all of our fabric for us to consider using for our Avery quilts. I'm going to go through this and get things on the design board, and while I do that, I'm going to play the video clip about the Hexie quilt, about the unstitching, because there's a couple of interesting things there. And while you're doing that, I'm going to work on the design wall, and then we're going to take a look at what I come up with. So I'll see you after this clip. Even though the pucker is really long, like it's from here to there, which was quite intimidating when I first saw it, like I was quite discouraged. It's only, I don't know, what is that? Well, we've got a ruler right here. Let's take a look. Hope I'm not moving too quickly. So from 14 over to 47. So what is that? 33 inches. That's not too bad considering what I did last time. I'm hoping that I can just take everything from here over and leave everything intact from here over. We'll see. Matching up how I sized the designs inside each of these blocks would be the biggest obstacle. Redoing this section, I could probably freehand because I'd just be following straight lines. I think I could do that. Well, I've done it elsewhere already, and I know that it went just fine. But I don't want to have to do all of that. So it doesn't take very long to figure out that this much unstitching is kind of taxing on the body. Anybody who's got some neck issues or spine issues, whatever, that much looking down. Okay, hang on just a minute. There should be a place on here that I can peel off and I can't find it. There we go. What I was saying is that it's not a surprise to anybody, of course, that this much unstitching is hard on the body. No matter how healthy your spine is, you still need to take care of it. And a lot of long armers talk about how hard the long arming can be on your body. And I don't think that's, something that takes anyone's imagination to figure out. That's true. I've got a lot of spine issues, and I know that I had to take some measures to kind of protect myself, right? Like everybody does, but I had to be really observant because I can't have any more fusions. So what I was finding is that, okay, if looking straight down is a big issue, number one, I need to take a lot of pauses, some breaks, straighten out my thoracic area and my shoulders and get my realignment reset and change where I'm looking, whether it's looking down or looking here or looking out, kind of hit different areas at one time. But then I realized that I can come over here and sit right here. Like I can roll the area I'm working on right here on the bar. Let me make sure you can see what I'm doing right there. I put my chair right here. This is what I was doing last night when I got fatigued from looking down. I just sat right here and did this area. And it was right in front of me. And it's still down, right? Like it's not at eye level. But I am holding my body in a different position. And I think that's important. So that's just a little tip. So you got to take care of your bodies, ladies and gentlemen. This is any kind of repetitive motion is challenging for the body. And if you already have any issues, it's just good to make sure they don't get worse, right? I got so many threads. I was approaching this method of unstitching the first time around using this tool. I think it's called the embroidery tool by Clover versus my unpicker, my seam ripper. And I think that was costing me some time because I watched Sam Alberts again this weekend, and what she was doing when she was unstitching was a lot quicker. So I went back to using this. What it does is it creates a lot more little bitty pieces. And I could go through one of these rolls in no time. So I really kind of got to figure out a better way to do this. I think she had a brush that she called a thread catcher brush. I don't know if that's a thing or, it's just like a pet brush that she was calling a thread catcher brush. I don't know. I'll be looking that up, that's for sure. Because something that's more reusable would be more ideal because This is ridiculous how much I go through, you know, a different sheet of this. Every time I turn around, there's just 1,000 little threads. 1,000 little threads. It's time to roll. I've got a little bit right here that I need to unstitch. I'm actually leaving this area right here. I don't think that I can take the backing fabric in this area and smooth it all out without having to pull it that way. I don't think. But if I can, I want to have left all of this intact. So I'm not touching this area just yet. So I'm not going to touch that. I'm just working in this strip upwards to where my, where did it go? I feel like my tape got repositioned. I need to replace that. Hang on. Yeah, right there is where that pucker starts. Right there. I think I'll put a pin in that so it doesn't get moved again. So just that area from here over to the outside border is all I'm going to unpick. I'd like to get that done today, but I also want to do some sewing of our Avery quilts. There, that's not going to budge now. I know where that starts. It's a good visual for me. Okay, I'm going to roll it a little bit to get this area right here so I don't have to lean over. And then get started on this section before I switch gears. I think that'll be a long enough of a session before I take a break. Something that I think is really invaluable in a quilt studio is a clamp-on light, one of these bright lights that's a clamp-on. I cannot get that sheet pulled up, I swear. Anyway, a light like this that's easily transferred from one station to another, whether it's sitting on the chair with you while you're doing some handwork or it's something like this, because good light also helps to keep from us straining with our necks, and it helps to keep from straining with our eyes, and we can be more accurate. I was pretty dang intimidated when I first saw that big pucker in the back because it was so long. And it, you know, this may still turn into a full week of work for me. But the challenge of fixing it like it was the first time is actually enjoyable. I learned a lot through the process, and, you know, can't complain about that, that's for sure. And it feels good to have made a boo-boo correct, you know, made it right. Okay, I'm going to do this area here real quick. It shouldn't take too long because it's mostly done. There, I feel a little bit better about that. I've got to a good starting place. I've pulled up a thread, so when I come back to it, I don't have any reason to procrastinate. The thing I like the least about it is starting a new thread and getting that started, and I've already done that. I've got a visible section free of any stitching so that I've demarked my area from what I'm leaving and where I'm starting. So it's, you know, I'm set up for success. There's just no two ways about it. Unstitching is unstitching. It's kind of a methodical process. It's a good time to put on a video or a movie or podcast or something. I don't mind the activity of this. It's just a matter of undoing productivity where you thought you were almost done and you were proud of what you did from the front, you know. And so when you get over that disappointment and you realize that you've got to do some unstitching, then it's the actual process of unstitching, and it's just not that bad. It's what I was dreading about it was when I was having to look down onto the quilt top and figuring this out to sit here when this is more, you know, at almost shoulder level here. Still having to look a little bit, but I'm not dangling my head down over it. So that's very, very helpful. Let's transition now back over to Avery quilts. I started putting the blocks on a little bit too low, so I had to set the camera at a different angle. So my head's not going to get in the frame unless I were to squat down. So it doesn't matter. You don't need to see me. You need to see the quilt blocks. Sorry about the framing of the video. That didn't take very long. I hope there was something valuable in that video clip for you guys. I don't want to bore you to death about something as monotonous as unstitching, but you know, it helped me when I saw Sam Alberts talk about it. And there's just something psychologically helpful when somebody else tells me they goofed up too. So I want to be that person for you guys. I promised that from the very beginning, that I'm going to be vulnerable about my learning journey through quilting. So I've goofed up, and I'm also learning to embrace the journey of fixing where I goofed up. My puppies are underneath me making noise. What do you guys think? I think it was probably a fine call, you know. To put the pink in here would have just been what I had envisioned, a just complete wash of color, but the white really works well. And then each one stands alone for what it is. You got Cocoa Melon, you got your snowman from Frozen, a little bit of everybody in here. So before I start cutting, don't chew on that. No, that's not a chew toy. That is an extension cord. Before I start cutting into this, I want to make two decisions: the width of our sashing and also the placement of our blocks. So on the width, I'm thinking the width needs to be whatever this measures out to be, like 1.5 inches or something like that. I don't have a ruler right here, but I bet you that's not 2 inches, is it? Anyway, I'll measure it, and that's what we'll make here. I think that's fine. There's no reason to really overthink that. You could make it much smaller, and that's fine too. But I think we'll just go with that. So on our color placement, I think we all agreed this will need to be in the middle because it's the only one that's framed out. These we thought should be not up against each other because they have similar fabric and they kind of get too strong in the quilt if they're together. They kind of take over the eye. Our purples are opposing, so that helps for flow. You got these blues that go along with, you know, make your eye go from here to there to down here. So I think your eye keeps on moving. I don't see anything really wrong. The only thing is, you know, we've got these two colors that are pretty predominant in both of these blocks, and they're next to each other. But because the rest of the blocks are so different, and this one's another flood of color, it's not messing with my eye. So hopefully you guys agree. And same thing here. You've got a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and there's nothing wrong with having some continuity. Just my problem with these three was that this check just, when you put those three together, or any two of them together, it was just really eye-catching. So I think this is a winner. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. So I'm going to go downstairs, have a little bit of lunch, and when I come back up, I'm going to start cutting on our first set of stashing and start putting something under the needle and get that needle moving. Okay, we can actually start cutting on our fabric now. I'm going to clean my table yet again. I know in the last video, I was cleaning my surface in that video too, but I think it's just going to be there you go. I think it's just going to be one of those things that if you're juggling multiple quilts and multiple projects, the work surface is going to evolve. And you have to have, that's why, if you're a newbie out there, get yourself some of these project boxes, or sometimes it's a project bin, like what we're keeping our yardage for the Avery quilts in, that's right over here. Sometimes you have to store your project while you work on another project, and you want to keep it all together. And this is a beautiful way to do that. And that's also why I decided to use I just had some spare file folders and decided that was a good way of separating. Like I could stack all these quilts we're working on and keep them kind of separated by having them in these file folders. So I want to keep this out because I want to get to another quilt. I know we're about to piece together the unicorn quilt, but as soon as I get done with that one, I want this stack so visible it's calling my name. So I'm just going to scoot it to that side of the table. Hopefully that's fine. It is behind my sewing machine, so I may have to do something else, but that's where I'm going to start. I got to tell you guys, when I went down for lunch, I saw an email from one of you. And I'm only not saying her name because it was just an email to me. It wasn't like she was writing something to share, but it was from one of you who was a new quilter, and she was talking about how much she liked this Avery project because as a new quilter, she needed, you know, a reason to do more blocks and to explore. And so that's what she's doing. And I found that was very cool. I had not thought about things from that perspective, had not thought about how this helps anybody besides the patients, right? So I think it's cool. That's just the way, when you start doing things for other people, it's one of those things that blesses everybody involved and has surprise blessings for other people. So my surface is almost cleared. I do have my stack of Mars quilt stuff that's staying on the table too, because that's just how it's going to be. All right, I'm going to bring our white fabric over and start cutting. Before we do, let's measure. What are we going to be cutting? Yep, 1.5 inches. This width, you know, we talked about how we were going to make our sashing the same width as that. So what we see on our fabric here is 1.75 inches. So when it's all done, it's going to be 1.5 inches. So that's what we want our sashing to be too. So that means we need to cut it 2 inches. I've not cut fabric in a little while, and it's obvious because I used to have weights to put on my rulers to keep them from moving. If my hands aren't strong enough, I'm just going to go very carefully. My wrists just slide around, so I can't trust them to hold the ruler. I'll have to get my hand weights back up here. I know where they are. I actually have them supporting a puppy gate. Okay, so take that, turn it 2 inches. These are going to be just slightly oversized, and I'm not cutting it in half to get 2 blocks of sashing. I'm going to leave it as a whole strip just because different people have made these blocks, right? There's going to be variances. So I need to allow for that. Okay. So Miss Kitty Cat with a unicorn in the middle was this one of Barry's? I can't recall which one he did. I think it was one of our first ones. So Miss Kitty Cat is going to get one right here. It doesn't have to be an exact science. As long as I stay on this side of that line, it's going to be close enough. So that's for the left side of Kitty Cat. That's for the right side. We're good. All right, I'm going to set this on my sewing stool. Get one created for who was this? Ariel? Is this who this was? No, or was it? I feel like that was the mermaid, but you know, all these princesses look the same. That goes over here. Okay, so I don't really want to make things difficult on myself right now, that I keep the blocks in the order that they're supposed to be in. So I just have 2 that's in the works right now. The first one, which is the kitty cat, and then this one who looks like Cinderella and the mermaid and all the other princesses. Let me just start there. Guys, we are putting our first stitches in our quilt. This block is really squared up nicely. I don't think the other one is as much, so I might need to square that up first before I do this. I'm going to sew it on with the seams facing me so that as I'm sewing, I can flatten out those seams the direction they're supposed to be. See, right there was an opportunity. I could have been making a unit for another quilt. I've got 5 blocks off the sewing machine, and I've got them on the design wall. I'm going to stop there because my day has gone long, and I still don't have kind of energy that I really would like to have to push myself. If my energy levels were kind of at, baseline, I might spend another hour or so working on that, but I'm not going to. I want to actually sit down, get this video edited for you guys. I feel good about where I've gotten to. I I've gotten a starting point. I got it out of the starting gate on this. You know, I've got my fabric picked out. I know what size to cut. I know which order I'm doing it in. Like the decision making is done. I just now pick up from where I left off. So tomorrow I'm going to try to move the needle on that. Tomorrow is supposed to be a day dedicated to the long arm. But as I've said, I am in the phase on the long arm of doing some unstitching. So I have to do that in segments and take breaks. So working on the Avery quilt, this pink unicorn quilt, will help with that. Like I'll work over there on the long arm some, and then I'll come over here and work on this. In putting this quilt together, I noticed that my center unicorn is sized differently than the other blocks. And so that's just going to make all the ones in that row be a little bit differently sized. Not going to matter at all, really. Because of the way those other blocks are constructed, you can trim them down a little bit, you know, 1/4 inch all the way around, and it's fine. I was worried that the width of the unicorn quilt might be too narrow and not match up to the one above it, but that's working out just fine. So we've got things started, and that's probably a good place to end the video. I hope you don't mind that this video, the content of it was on all 3 of the topics for this channel. The long arm, my creative project with the iris chain, and a little bit of the Avery quilts as well. It's kind of where I am right now after, you know, a couple of recovery days. I'm just kind of in catch-up mode, so I'm just moving the needle on all the projects. I got to get back to my schedule, though, because my schedule serves me well. So hopefully throughout the course of this week, and once that hexie quilt gets off the long arm, then I should be able to get back to my baseline and get back to working my schedule from day to day. All right, my friends, have a great day, and keep moving that needle in your studio. I'll do it here, and we'll talk soon. We'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.